Welcome to the Fernando Amorsolo y Cueto Virtual Museum. Today, we will explore the works of one of the most iconic Filipino painters whose masterpieces capture the beauty, spirit, and history of the Philippines, Fernando Amorsolo. He is the first national artist of the Philippines and is renowned for his evocative artworks that beautifully encapsulate the essence of Filipino identity and culture. His artistic repertoire spans various themes with a focus on idealized portrayals of Filipino women, lush landscapes, and poignant scenes that reflect the everyday lives of his countrymen. Our museum is divided into 4 sections: his figurative works and idealism, landscapes, portraits, and art during war. Each section takes us on a journey through Amorsolo's artistic evolution and the historical periods he portrayed. Amorsolo is fond of acquiring the Philippine version of the Greek ideal for the human form. His painting of Filipino women greatly reposes Western ideals of beauty and massively favors the appearance of Filipino ideals, mostly the duties, actions, habits, traditions, and culture of them as he is one. He was also devoted in basing the appearances and faces of his human paint subjects from the members of his family. To quote Amorsolo, "The women I paint should have a round face, not of the oval type often presented to us in newspapers and magazine illustrations. The eyes should be exceptionally lively, not the dreamy, sleepy type that characterizes the Mongolian. The nose should be of the blunt form, but firm and strongly marked. So the ideal Filipino beauty should not necessarily be white complexioned, nor of the dark brown color of the typical Malayan, but of the clear skin or fresh colored type which we often witness when we meet a blushing girl." Amorsolo was an inclined figure painter, a master portraitist, which is why his works early on are sketches of people, mostly women. Example are these works: Untitled, Kneeling Nude, Graphite on Paper; Female Nude 1, 1920, Charcoal with Pastel on Paper; Old Woman, 1920, Oil on Board; and his Touche, a typical Filipino beauty, 1926, Oil on Wood. For Amorsolo, a typical Filipino beauty captures his ideal of Filipino beauty, replacing the Maria Clara figure with a cheerful, hardworking woman in a barot saya, her hair tied with a bandana to shield from the sun. He paid close attention to her eyes, face, and translucent garment, delicately showing her arms and neckline. This painting embodies his vision of the Filipina, which he reimagined throughout his career until his passing in 1972, shaping an entire generation's perception of beauty.
Amorsolo carries on his fondness of his fellow blood, even in his artworks that are to be nature-involved. There is never a missed opportunity for a stroke of patriotism. His works visualizes the Filipino soul. Indoctrinated in his paintings are cultures and traditions, everyday lives, and togetherness of people. Amorsolo's works presented a sense of nationhood in counterpoint to the American colonial rule during his time, and with his art, it became an important factor to the formation of the Filipino national identity, wherein art historian Eric Torres described the artist's sunlight paintings as overflowing with sweetness and optimism. View of Bataan from Manila Bay, 1939. View of Bataan from Manila Bay is a spectacular example of the halcyon scenes for which Amorsolo was so strongly acclaimed. It captures all the classic Amorsolo elements: a panoramic landscape in coast, hard-working fisher folks pulling their boats in a sunset of a glorious golden, bathing the lands in warm hues. These sunsets are an Amorsolo hallmark and reflects his complete mastery in allowing light to enter his art and completing the scenery of painting to fully reflect his homeland. Marikina Valley, 1946. Marikina Valley encapsulates Amorsolo's genius with its crisp pastoral scene lightly showered in the golden yellow sunlight. a vision of Philippine countryside life in its most peaceful state. Riding atop a sturdy carabao, a young maiden dips towards a flowing stream and beyond, a distant mountainscape. Bulacan, 1950. Amorsolo illuminated the Bulacan scenery while overlooking the Apo Cristo Church. His refined technique in lighting, contrast and absurd use of colors, chiaroscuro and colori cambiante, which vividly displays the magnificence of the countryside sunshine and portrays perfectly the tranquility of provincial life. Sunset over Bataan, 1952. The light of the seaside feared Amorsolo's palette and intensified the vigor of his paint handling. Amorsolo's color studies are quick impressions of the moments in oil. Like his landscapes, the seascapes were completed on the spot during travels. They could belong to a group all their own with the notable sunsets that set the whole painting smooth, a soulful warmth of home coast. Ricefield, 1954. Fernando Amorsolo depicted Mount Arayat on many of his cheerful sunlit paintings. After all, it is the only thing that breaks the monotony of the central Luzon plain.
Fernando Amorsolo's great body of work can be classified into several groupings. One such group is his portraits. Amorsolo was also the most sought-after portraitist of the 20th century. As the most popular painter around, they were mostly commissioned works depicting the men and women from the upper echelons of Filipino society, as well as Americans residing in Manila during the American period.
A portrait of Henry Schradieg, 1935. Amorsolo originally did this portrait from photographs of Henry Schradieg, a foremost German violinist, music pedagogue, and a composer who wrote violin etude books, still commonly used in the present. Schradieg's nephew lived and worked in the Philippines and had portraits made from photographs of his famous relatives.
Portrait of Sharon Alice Murphy of 1946. This portrait features Sharon Murphy, daughter of Irene Alice Murphy, painted during her trip to the Philippines in 1946. The work captures a significant period in Sharon's life as her mother was deeply involved in post-war relief efforts in the Philippines. The serene expression and soft tones in the portrait reflect the resilience and warmth of a young girl amidst a backdrop of political and social change. Portrait of Agapito Castro in Masonic attire of 1948. This portrait was painted in 1948, commissioned by his daughter, Maria Buenaventura Castro Espinosa. The piece shows Castro adorned with the cap and neckpiece of the Scottish Rite, proudly representing his Masonic affiliation. The portrait reflects the values of fraternal love, relief, and truth upheld by Freemasonry.
Portrait of Mrs. Montilla, 1954. This portrait, commissioned by the Montilla family, captures Doña Josefa Ortiz E. Jordan, a Spanish mestiza from Iloilo, in all her elegance. She married Don Bonifacio Montilla E. Yanson of Negros Occidental, part of a powerful landowning family. Painted by master artist Fernando Amorsolo, the work is a testament to his renowned skill in portraying Filipino high society. Executed during Amorsolo's Rembrandt-inspired phase, the portrait features subtle lighting and delicate details, highlighting the timeless grace of Doña Josefa. A portrait of Sotero Baluyot, 1959. Sotero Baluyot was a prominent figure in Philippine politics, having served as governor of Pampanga, secretary of Public Works and Communications, and later as a senator. The portrait captures Baluyot's dignified demeanor, reflecting his stature as a statesman and a public servant. Artworks during the war. During the Second World War, Amorsolo stayed in Manila and began producing journalistic and melodramatic paintings. Galvanized by the events around him, he departed from his usual subject matters of idyllic images of the countryside, such as men and women planting rice, for which he had become well known. Bombing of the Intendencia, 1942. The image in Amorsolo's painting is derived from an actual photograph of the incident. The black and white photo depicts the burning Intendencia in the background while people on the bridge watched. On the right-hand side of the picture is a boat in the Pasig River depicted in its exact position in Amorsolo's painting. In both images, the people in the foreground are hazy, their faces indiscernible. While the people captured by the camera seem to be merely watching the flames engulf the building, Amorsolo depicts people fleeing from the scene, their belongings in tow. The boat on the right is shown in a painting at a more precarious angle, teetering as if about to sink. Untitled War Scene 1942. Amorsolo's depiction of the brutality of war is a marvelous summary of the artist's style. Perfect anatomical draftsmanship, which emphasizes volume, gleaming twilight colors which enhance the molding of form, and a profoundly touching vigor of expression, especially that of the hapless female victim.
Explosion of 1944. Red flames break through Amorsolo's typically idyllic blue sky in this oil painting created during World War II. The energy of the painting lies in the explosion cloud, marked by thick impasto, which glows against the darkened city. War Ruins of 1945. While the golden period of Amorsolo is often identified with sunlit bucolic scenes of the Philippine countryside, the stark reality of the ravages of war, which the artist witnessed and experienced, were also meticulously documented in a series of canvases. This painting of the bombed-out ruins of a government building, possibly the Philippine legislature, is a study of stark contrast, where destruction is set against the nonchalant beauty of the sky, a silent, poignant testament to human folly and the transitory nature of reality.